Hey, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Stu's drunk. So
I mean, buzzed is probably more accurate.
If you listen, you stumbled in here. I saw you.
It's a little bit. I'm sitting. Do I really need to be able to walk?
If you missed radio, Stu did a power hour just to test the theory that Obama was able to do power hour and then go to class.
I think we backed up Obama on this one.
You did.
I mean, bottom line was I was able to occasionally come up with a coherent sentence.
Yeah.
And so it was hard. I will say, when you're at minute 45 of that thing, it's not fun. Not fun.
Doesn't this just prove that both you and former President Obama have these insane tolerances to alcohol?
Yeah, I think it just proves that he's an alcoholic.
I think HR should look into this further. Next thing you know, he threw ice at somebody while drinking.
Right?
No,
because, Stu, you can't be the only one that's allowed to drink on air. Yeah. So we decided that we would have to join along with you.
We had a real scientific reason. You guys are just drinking at work.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Friday. All right, Stu, top story.
We got to go Kavanaugh, right? Big vote today, 51-49. We're going to go into the details of that and what it looks like going into the weekend.
All right, Jason.
I'm going to go in tandem with that, but also it's a very interesting anniversary date today, which goes right into the Kavanaugh hearing today.
And our special guest is Giancarlo Sopo.
Yes.
Hey! Thank
awesome.
you so much for joining us. What is your top story?
The economy.
Get the applause.
Awesome for jobs.
Yeah. So the applause for the economy and jobs and also Giancarlo Sopo.
Thank you.
All right. Before we get into that, I want to thank our sponsor, iTarget Pro. I say this every time, but I was gone when they did the commercial for this, and I came back and I watched the commercial, and I was like, dude, that's so cool. I have to get it. So Jason, help me explain this. It's a laser bullet, basically. You put the bullet into your gun, and you can practice at home using your personal gun, and you save on ammo because it's just a laser.
Yeah, so if it's multiple different calibers you can get, whatever gun that you have, 40, 45. I have a 40. I use this in my home. You just pop that in just like you would. It looks like a normal round, but you pop it in, single shot, just like you would a normal round, and then you could dry fire. So like the reason dry fire is so important.
And it tracks your firing with you download the app. And so you can see how good your shot is.
It's like a video game almost. Like I get my kids involved in this. You can teach them gun safety, plus you can actually improve their skills at the same time. But yeah, every time you push the trigger and it fires, there's the firing pin that hits the little button on the back of the round, and it points that laser at the target. So you can track, you can track your improvement, you can track what you're shooting. It's amazing, and I cannot stress enough the importance of dry fire. Shooting is a perishable skill, and if you're going to go to a range every week, which you should do if you're keeping up with your skills, you're going to spend an insane amount of money on rounds. But with iTarget Pro, you can dry fire from the comfort of your own home. It's amazing.
Yeah. So you can go to targetpro.com, use promo code NEWS, and you can save 10% off right now. Jason, really quickly, do you think that my son is 6? Is that something that I should be doing with him now? I always worry that he's too young.
I hate to give you advice on it. I don't know how comfortable you are with guns in your home. I come from a military family.
I have one, but it's like biometric safe, very careful that, he doesn't know that it's even there.
Okay, so I have. From around that age, that's about the age that I started teaching my kids, because we do have guns in our house, and I've taught them, you never point any weapon at anybody, even a Nerf gun, you never point at somebody. Right. They learned that from a very young age. My kid could break apart my Glock when he was, about 6 years old and put it back together. But he's more safe than probably 90% of adults that have just gotten a gun and are messing around with it. So I personally think that's very, very important.
And Giancarlo, before we get into it, I want you to just tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So my name is Giancarlo Sopo. It's awesome to be here and sharing a beer with you guys.
Cheers.
I'm 35 years old, born and raised in Miami, and I work in public affairs and communications, helping companies communicate throughout Latin America. My background, though, is actually in politics. I started out working on Democratic campaigns earlier in my career, and then over the years, I transitioned to the private sector, and now I'm just, over these past few months with everything that's been going on, I've been increasingly worried about this sharp move to the radical left within my party, and I'm just trying to, pull people my way toward a more sensible center, if you will.
I need to ask security how we let a Democrat into the building. That is unbelievable. It must be stopped. All right, I want to get into the latest on Kavanaugh, but just as a caveat for the audience, there are still a lot of moving parts right now at the time of this taping, so I'm sure, you may be listening to this at like 8 p.m. and something's completely different. But as of right now,
by now, Carrot Top could be in the Supreme Court. We don't know. It could be anything like that. It's been a crazy day. Watching the vote come down live on the radio show today, 51-49. The moving parts there was 4 really that were questionable. Manchin as the one Democrat who kind of crossed the aisle and voted with Kavanaugh.
West Virginia.
Murkowski from Alaska went the other way, voted no. And so it was 51-49 as the final vote. Collins voted yes. Flake voted yes. As we go forward, as you point out, this is it's really it's constantly moving at this point. But what we expect to happen is this vote to hold. There is one really weird wild card, which is Steve Daines from Montana, who is going back to his daughter's wedding. And it's a weird thing. We kind of talked about this a little bit on radio, and that, my first reaction is, this is a big deal. This is a Supreme Court justice, right? You need to figure it out. I always say this about, I'm an Eagles fan. I love football. I love baseball. You're in a World Series game. You're in a Super Bowl sort of situation. You're at the game. This is your thing. This is what you do. However, when I really stopped and think about it, and I thought about my daughter, Ainsley, if it's her wedding, screw America. I'm there. That's really my top priority. Yeah. So I really kind of have come to the position that I really like Daines for this. I like the fact that he's you know what? It's my daughter's wedding and I'm going to it.
Yeah, it's a normal guy.
Yeah, that's what you should be as a father, right? This is really what's important. And in the end of the game, 51-49, without Daines 50, it should be okay. Even if we get a switch or whatever, they can wait the vote out and it should be okay, even if he comes back to Washington. Kavanaugh should get through. I think we'll find out later on what this actually means. Look, Clarence Thomas went through this, right? Clarence Thomas went through a very similar process. He was approved 52-48, but he was approved 52-48 at a time where they could have filibustered him. The Democrats decided not to do that. They could have at that time. They let him through with only 52 votes. Obviously, I believe that was the right thing. Thomas, I think, has been a very good Supreme Court justice. And over time, that does fade. But there is a situation where we have really turned this institution into a political animal. And, it's not really what it's supposed to be. I don't fully understand Kavanaugh's approach when it comes to going on Fox News and writing op-eds for the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I kind of would like him out of it, but I understand his instinct to defend himself.
Exactly, and that's why I kind of give him a pass on that, is I can't even imagine if people were calling me the things that, a pedophile.
Yeah, it just has nothing, it's not even an accusation.
Exactly, right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm getting smeared that much. Mm-hmm. That's going to be my natural reaction too, is to come out and be like, hey, I'm a human. I'm an actual person that you're talking about, and I didn't do these things.
And that's the biggest thing here. I think where the left overplayed their hand is not treating him as if he was a human. I really think Murkowski, Collins, Flake, we're all very gettable on this. With this sort of situation, there's a bunch of unknowns. We don't know what really happened in that room that night a million years ago. They were gettable. But they overplayed their hand by so much. They made it so ridiculous. They convicted him without any evidence. Mm-hmm. And I think that made people like, Collins, who is not a conservative, stand back and say, wait a minute, what standard am I setting here for America if I vote against this? What am I saying to, every, little boy in America as they grow up?
I don't think that she might have gotten got. She was definitely gettable, and she might have gotten got. I'm still not completely convinced that she is not going to flip. Mm-hmm. I don't know. She could have just voted yes because she could come out. She's called I think a 3 p.m. Eastern Time press conference. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why you would. Why would you? If you voted yes, then why do you need a press? She's the only one, I think, calling a press conference.
We're taping this slightly before then, so we don't know the outcome of it. You may know at this point, but it is a weird approach for sure.
I just don't understand.
Yeah, where I'd say my team really overplayed its hand was with Michael Avenatti, and then parroting his accusations. Those accusations. Look, I went to a private Catholic school too, and I could appreciate the culture a little bit in terms of hey, this is it could be a little bit fratty sometimes, right? But to allege that a group of 15-year-old boys were running a gang rape cartel all throughout high school, that an adult She not only went once, then she continued going at least 10 times.
Oh, look, they're gang raping. I think I'll come back. See you next time.
Yeah, the punch is so good. I have to
that's true. Which, again, that was one of the other accusations, spiking the punch.
Right.
Because usually you go to
punch
these
is
parties.
Just Hawaiian punch with no alcohol in it. That's a normal part.
That's what they go for.
Punch at high school parties. Did the high school, like, homecoming committee cater these parties? Punch?
Yeah. Like, you're not going to have punch unless it's
they're making this guy kind of seem like Biff Tannen, when in reality he was more like George McFly in high school. This guy was a dork. He was like a jock, like a dork. You know?
Well, and Avenatti is a disaster. He's one of those people, anything Avenatti touches turns to dust, right? Like he's
got the fecal touch.
He does. He does.
Everything he touches, not the Midas touch, the fecal touch.
It's slightly different.
Yes.
No, it's true. I mean, you know, and people forget there were people talk about the Ford allegation, and that's the main one that's been able. You know, obviously, she testified in front of everybody, but there were 5 allegations against Kavanaugh. Yeah. One person who went on Twitter and recanted their allegation. One person who wouldn't even sign their name to it. One person who was an Avenatti client who was making ridiculous accusations. One person who said they saw it in college. When they went to the person who was supposed to confirm this, they themselves said they had no idea of this allegation. And then the Ford thing, where we've seen the lack of evidence there. I mean, even if you believe the Ford thing, which is highly questionable at this point, you know, we have to remember that there's 4 other allegations that have basically gone up in flames. And, you know, we want to believe the best about people. We want to believe that, you know, why, if you're Ford, why would you come forward with this? Well, there's a lot on the line. There's a lot of motivation there. And, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, you pointed this out yesterday, and we've seen letters to this effect today. More and more, it seems like this was an accusation that she made. And I don't know what happened to her in her life. We don't know. But this accusation seemed to have the stench of politics all over it from the beginning. And, you know, even though she was convincing in her testimony, she has nothing else other than that. And that's what's kind of interesting here. You know, I said this before these testimonies happened. We have a Supreme Court justice here. We have someone who is supposed to decide massive constitutional issues. And we turned it into performance theater. Here are 2 people going up in front of the country. Who's going to be most convincing? One person is very emotional and saying something terrible happened to her. Another one is very angry and saying, I did not do this. That is not the way to decide constitutional issues here. Yeah. You know, we turned it into anger versus sympathy. That's emotion versus emotion. Neither one of those things, no side of that should have emotion attached to it. We should be making, you know, sort of logical, constitutional decisions on this, and when it comes down to it, there's just not enough evidence for anyone, I think, to really make a concrete belief when it comes to believing Ford or any one of the 5 accusers.
Yeah, and before we get to break, I do want to bring up, just because you kind of touched on it right there, the latest on the Ford testimony and all of her statements that she had given was that, you know, as we know, Leland Keeser, she named as a witness to this party. Keeser, of course, said that she was not a witness, and she said, no, this did not happen. Well, apparently, Ford's other friend, Martha McLean, who is former FBI, and then who else did she worked for Chuck Schumer?
And Preet Bharara.
And Preet Bharara. So she's very politically connected with the Democrats. So she apparently was someone who went to Leland Keeser and asked her to please clarify her statement. Just kind of prodded her to, hey, you know, you didn't really give her enough backing. I think that you need to change your statement. That was released in the FBI investigation, and apparently the FBI obtained text messages between Leland Keeser and Martha McLean. So at this point, you really have to be thinking, okay, something stinks here, because when you've got a friend of hers who is very politically connected, going and telling someone who did not corroborate the event that you need to help her out, that doesn't all add up.
It's a bad look.
Yeah, it's a really bad look.
And we're about to see a lot more of that, I think, too. Grassley wrote a letter.
I hope so.
To Ford's attorneys, saying that they want all the communications between all the different accusers, Ramirez and
Swetnick.
Yes. So obviously something that must have come out in the FBI investigation. He already knows. Now he wants it on record.
Yeah. All right, back in a minute.
I just believe everything that Kavanaugh says. That's kind of my policy.
I got that feeling with Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I was busy drinking my wine.
You drunk.
Before we get into the rest of the show, want to make sure to thank our sponsor, My Patriot Supply. So emergencies happen, right? We've got hurricanes where you could be flooded and lose power. We've also got, like, you gentlemen, if your wives go out of town, who's going to cook?
Society breaks down pretty
right?
well. Yeah.
And so you need food, and we can't expect you guys to get up off the couch and go get food.
I cook in my house.
Do you?
My
fiance is the cook, too.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's amazing.
I don't even know where the kitchen is in my house.
If society breaks down, however, Uber Eats does not deliver.
That's
Which is terrible.
That's true. I think Jason's wife was out of town for like 2 weeks a little while ago, and the kids were so tired of having pizza. Was it pizza every night?
They got so tired of all the places that Uber Eats delivers from. That's what they got sick of.
Dad, please stop it. So you can either use My Patriot Supply as it's intended for emergencies, actual natural disasters, or you can use it for when your wife has to leave and you're just too lazy to make food. It stays good for 25 years. And guess what? Now you can get a 2-week emergency food supply for $75. That includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's kind of a no-brainer, and that's way less than you would spend on Uber Eats for 2 weeks.
Yeah, for one meal, let's say.
$75, that's a steal. You can go to preparewithnews.com. That is preparewithnews.com. Jason, you said that it was an interesting anniversary.
Yeah, the way things line up sometimes, it really makes you, well, for me, I'm a religious person. Things just, I don't put it off to luck or to happenstance. I always see usually a spiritual, element in it. But so we are having, the biggest thing that's happened, I remember when I was a kid, I was a political science major my freshman year in college. And I remember they were saying, this is his history, like this was so big. They were talking about the Clinton impeachment. And wow, I am old. That was crazy. So they were talking about the Clinton impeachment. Well, nowadays I get the same feeling from watching the Kavanaugh hearings. And it's huge. It's front and center. It's the center, ring of the circus. It's crazy. Well, this date is the same exact date the MeToo movement began.
Wow.
October 5th last year. Exactly the same. Wow. Same date. It's been exactly 12 months to the day. Now, let me caveat this with saying the MeToo movement, right, it started off very, very serious. Everything against Weinstein's horrible. It's backed up. It's corroborated. There's evidence for it. And many other cases that will come out of this will be, a positive. It's good that there's a spotlight on this because of this.
Yes.
However, there has been some not so, how do you put it? I don't know. I don't think everything. No, it's impossible that all of these are. I think a lot of these are like Kavanaugh's. There's been, to date, I don't remember the exact number, but over 400, it's 420 something accusations made. Over 400. Now, and those are just the ones.
You're talking about just like from notable celebrities.
These are notable.
Okay, right.
So these are notable. These are like the Weinstein.
I've seen way more than that just on Twitter.
People. So the numbers the numbers double once you. It's well over 800 once you start going into the lesser known. It's just insane, and it's kind of like it's just where we've gone from to where the Me Too movement went from being something very serious, something we actually should look at, to you are guilty because you have been accused of being so. You are the accuser, so now we are going after your head and we are going after you to destroy who you are, your reputation, everything about you. And I just thought in my mind, I was like, it's crazy that at this point we are seeing basically the culmination. It was almost like it was served up to us on a platter of it's an actual perfect example of where we've come from, where we are now. This is we're at. You were looking at my beer or something like that.
No, he's got a pumpkin ale over there. I'm like, how did I not get that? In the middle of that point, I was like, wait a minute.
I was here early.
Oh, I guess so. Jeez, I'm sorry about that.
But I was like, it was a perfect example of where Me Too has devolved into. What it has devolved into. Yeah. It has devolved into this thing where this person is guilty with no evidence whatsoever. But we are going after him, and everyone's calling him a monster, and the other person a victim, based off of nothing.
Where do we find the balance on this?
Yeah. I think show me specific instances of sexual harassment and of sexual assault, and I will stand there with you, right? Show me evidence. There was plenty of evidence in the Roy Moore case, for example, right? Right. I don't think any of us looked at that and thought, oh, this hasn't been corroborated, because it was corroborated.
There were a lot of people, I will say, just because I like to try to be objective here, at least here at this table, there were a lot of Republicans who excused all of this corroborating evidence, and I think we were the ones who said, you kind of have to look at all of this and say, yeah, he probably did do it.
Yeah.
But we didn't. But there were Republicans who did defend his behavior, and I spoke out against them at great length.
Yeah, me too, right? And so I think it's important to look at a case-by-case basis and not judge by guilt based on association or guilt by gender, right? So I think, like, in the evidence in the Brett Kavanaugh case, you have to approach it with a prosecutor's mind, a dispassionate prosecutor who just looks at the cold, hard facts, right? And when you follow the evidence, it does not point you in the direction of guilt. That doesn't mean that you can't oppose Brett Kavanaugh because of ideological reasons or philosophical or whatever, right. but you can't call the guy a rapist. Right. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's nothing virtuous about collective guilt. Right? I mean, accusing Brett Kavanaugh because all white people are bad,
right.
There's nothing virtuous about that. I mean, that's not something you should be proud of. And we kind of have come to this point where, look, there have been a lot of accusations, a lot of real things, and I think, we can come to something really good out of this whole moment. And I hope it's going forward instead of looking back. I think so far we've focused on, like, hey, what happened in 1978? That person who did that thing in 1978 should be punished, or that person who did that thing in 1982 should be punished. But, like, more importantly, we should look at what's the truth going forward. And if we can come to a point with the sort of MeToo movement where we say, hey, back in the day, there was maybe pressures against women who didn't want to come out because it was, really tough for them, and they maybe did get blamed, and maybe they did get treated unfairly and weren't believed, and powerful men were able to squash them. Let's end that. Let's get rid of that going forward and say to women today, if something like that happens to you, please go to the police. We're going to take you seriously. We're going to look into your claims and take them seriously and hold, no matter how powerful they are, the men responsible if they do that. Because the only way to actually litigate these things is to actually have evidence. Ford could be telling the absolute truth. There is no way we can punish Kavanaugh for it at this point. Because we have no evidence, we have no witnesses, we have no idea what happened.
And we also have corroboration on Kavanaugh's side,
right?
Yeah. Not on Ford's side.
I tend to agree. I think that there's definitely a path forward for this. I think it could be a good thing, although it's horrible for Dr. Ford. Her life has been ruined just as well.
And they're gonna kick her out as soon as they can.
And it's horrible for Kavanaugh and his family. Yeah. But I think that one of the good things that can come from this is we have seen, like, of all the numbers that I just threw out, the 400 plus accused, over 800, doubled. Those numbers are easy to find. The numbers that are hard to find are convictions. No one reports that. I couldn't find it this morning when I just did a really quick Google search.
Well, I mean,
no one's reporting on the convictions.
Hasn't even been convicted,
right? But what we haven't seen is one of these things fully play out. Okay, you've been accused. Let's get a bird's eye view into the courtroom and see how these things actually play out. We've seen it with Kavanaugh, which I think is a very, very positive thing going forward. We've seen it. Look, there needs to be a burden of they need to show evidence. In these cases, you can't just convict him based off of an accusation if it sounds and looks really bad.
I mean, it's positive in the sense that so far, again, as of this taping, so far it seems that justice and truth and fairness has prevailed, but there was still a large part. All Democrats minus one still voted against this guy and are still smearing him. And to me, that's a little bit scary. Really quickly, Giancarlo. So, how do you think that this is going to play out for the Democrats in November?
I think in some districts, in some congressional districts, it's going to play favorably. But I think as a whole, particularly in some Senate races, it's going to energize Republicans.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to help them in the House, but hurt them in the Senate.
Yeah.
You think that's accurate?
Yeah. I think that's fair. It might help them in some swing House districts, but in the Senate seats that are in play right now, it'll boost the Republican challengers.
All right. Back in a minute.
Yeah. One more thing is that there has to be some kind of consistent standards. There's no.
If you have not gotten your tickets yet, don't forget, Glenn is going on tour. He kicks it off October 25th, the 25th through the 27th. He's going to be here in Texas, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. Is it 12 cities?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, going all across the country. So check it out at glennbeck.com/tour. Get your tickets. You might see Stu there.
Yeah, Giancarlo will be dancing live.
Yeah, Cuban dancing.
Great. I can't wait. What are you waiting for? Go get the tickets. I'll see you in overtime.